Hello and welcome, everyone. When we study Indian polity, our focus almost always goes to that classic tug of war between the center and the states. But what about the relationship between the states themselves? How does a country like India, with all its incredible diversity, different languages, cultures, economies, actually function as one team? Well, today we're going to unpack the constitutional toolkit that was designed for exactly that. So let's just lay out the central problem, shall we? How do you get this huge, sometimes noisy family of states, with the center as the big brother and all the states as younger siblings, to just get along? How do you stop arguments over things like river water or trade from boiling over into massive conflicts? Well, the framers of our Constitution were incredibly forward-thinking. They anticipated these very issues and built a specific set of tools right into the system to manage them.
All right, here's our game plan for today. We'll start by really defining the federal challenge. Then we're going to look at the tools for 3 key friction points: our infamous water wars, how we coordinate through councils, and how we build a single, seamless union. And finally, we'll tie it all together with the big idea behind it all: cooperative federalism. So first things first, let's be absolutely clear about the problem. Our system is a union of states. By its very nature, that means you're going to have overlapping interests. And when you have overlapping interests, you're going to have the potential for disputes. It's inevitable. Whether it's a river that flows through 3 different states or a new law in one state that affects its neighbors, friction isn't a bug in the system, it's an expected feature. And that brings us to what is, frankly, the most crucial point. Cooperation between states isn't just a nice idea, it's not a nice to have, it is an absolute necessity. The entire federal system, our political stability, our economic growth, everything is built on this foundation of cooperation. If that foundation cracks, the whole building is at risk. Let's get into our first tool, and we're starting with one of the most emotional, most contentious issues you can find: water. Rivers are the lifelines of our country, but they don't exactly look at a map and stop at the state border, do they? They just flow, and that makes them a major source of conflict. Thankfully, the Constitution gives us a very specific instrument to deal with this. And that instrument is Article 262. Now, this is a really powerful tool, and it does 2 critical things. First, it gives Parliament the power to set up special bodies or tribunals to settle water disputes. And second, and this is the part you really have to remember, it can kick the Supreme Court and other courts out of the picture for these specific disputes. The idea was simple. Let's have specialized expert bodies handle these technically complex issues instead of bogging down the regular court system. So, to bring Article 262 to life, Parliament passed 2 laws back in 1956. Now, it's really important you understand the difference here. The River Boards Act, that was meant to be proactive. It was for cooperation. Think of it as setting up a committee to advise on how to best use a river together. The Inter-State Water Disputes Act, on the other hand, is reactive. It's for when the talking has failed. This act lets the center set up a temporary tribunal whose decision isn't just advice, it's final and legally binding on everyone. And make no mistake, this isn't some dusty old legal theory. This system is very much active today. We have several tribunals working right now on some of the country's biggest water conflicts, like the Krishna Tribunal involving 4 states, the Mahanadi dispute between Odisha and Chhattisgarh, and of course, the decades-old Ravi and BS issue. But, and this is a huge but, the system has a major flaw. The delays are just extraordinary. Just look at the Kaveri Tribunal. It was set up in 1990. It gave its final award 17 years later in 2007. 17 years! These massive delays can happen for all sorts of reasons: legal challenges, fights over data, and they can poison the relationship between states for generations. Okay, so if Article 262 is the tool for when things go wrong, our next tool is about making sure things go right in the first place. It represents a total shift in thinking. It's not about resolving conflict, it's about creating permanent spaces for dialogue to prevent conflict from ever starting. And this is where the brilliant Article 263 comes in. It gives the president the power to set up an interstate council. Honestly, the best way to think of this is as the ultimate family meeting table. Its job is to investigate disputes, sure, but its real magic is in creating a space to discuss things everyone cares about and to come up with recommendations to make sure everyone is on the same page. Now, here's a fascinating bit of trivia. This provision, Article 263, was in the Constitution from day one. But the Inter-State Council wasn't actually set up until 1990. It was formed based on a very strong recommendation from the Sarkaria Commission, which was a major body that studied center-state relations and said, hey, We really need this council to make federalism work better. And just take a look at who sits at this table. It's an absolute powerhouse. You've got the Prime Minister as the chairman. You have the chief ministers of every single state and union territory. You've got key cabinet ministers. I mean, this is the highest level of government from both the center and the states, all in one room talking directly to each other. It's a very big deal. Now, it's important not to confuse the Inter-State Council with something called Zonal Councils. The key difference is their origin. The Inter-State Council comes from the Constitution. The Zonal Councils, however, are statutory. They were created by a law, the States Reorganisation Act of 1956. The idea was to divide the country into 5 zones and create smaller, regional forums for cooperation, all chaired by the Union Home Minister. All right, we've covered how we handle fights and how we create forums to talk. Now let's move to the third part of our toolkit, which is all about the nuts and bolts of weaving the country together into one single economic and legal unit, making sure state borders don't act like international borders. This is where Article 261 comes in, and you can think of it as the legal glue of India. It's the full faith and credit clause. In simple terms, it means that laws, public records, and final court orders from one state have to be respected in all other states. This is what prevents total chaos. Imagine if a property deed or a marriage certificate was valid in one state but worthless in another. It's important to note, though, this applies to civil matters, not criminal ones. And now for one of the most beautiful and powerful lines in our entire Constitution, Article 301. It just says that trade, commerce, and movement throughout the territory of India shall be free. This single sentence is the foundation of our national economy. The goal is to create one giant, unified Indian market, breaking down any barriers between states. But of course, in a complex country, absolute freedom isn't always possible. So while Article 301 gives us that grand guarantee, the next few articles, 302 to 305, lay out some reasonable restrictions. For example, Parliament can impose some limits in the public interest, but it can't play favorites between states. Similarly, a state can tax goods coming from another state, but only if it taxes its own local goods at the same rate. It's all about balancing freedom with fairness. So we've looked at these different tools, right? For water disputes, for high-level meetings, for creating a common market. But what's the big idea? What's the grand philosophy that connects all of these different parts? What is the ultimate goal here? And the answer, the central theme that ties everything together, is this: cooperative federalism. These articles aren't just dry legal rules. They are the gears and levers of a system designed to make the center and the states work not as rivals, but as partners in the great project of governing India. And why does this matter so much? Well, because this constitutional framework is the very bedrock of our national unity. It's what gives us peaceful ways to solve our arguments. It gives us forums to plan our future together. And it gives us the rules to build a single, powerful economy. It is what allows a country with the mind-boggling diversity of India to function and thrive as one strong, unified nation. And so I'll leave you with this one final thought to ponder. These tools, these brilliant mechanisms, were designed over 70 years ago for the challenges of that time. But as India faces the new challenges of the 21st century, things like climate change impacting our rivers, or a digital economy that doesn't care about state borders, are these tools still strong enough? Or do we need to rethink them for the century ahead? That is the question we must all continue to ask. Thank you.